Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic Podcast. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I have a very potent and powerful and wonderful dear friend of mine on the line with me here today. I especially love how this woman, being, leader, creature, brings to the forefront how important it is for us to honor our own rhythm, our own cycles. I think it's really easy in our society to get sucked into hustle, into rhythms that maybe aren't supportive to our actual well-being, our expansion, our highest timeline. And what I love about Melanie, who's our guest today, is that she brings a lot of wisdom and knowledge and actual real life practices to the table on how to reconnect with your own true nature and live your life in alignment with that rhythm, with that pattern. And what happens is when we're actually in alignment with that rhythm, we're able to create greater. We're able to make greater choices to honor ourselves more deeply, and then thus be able to support others in our lives with more power and more strength. So this is going to be a really potent call. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Hang tight for 1 second. We'll be right back. It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur. Welcome back. So Melanie Elkin has been supporting women in their journeys of deep and empowering transformation through retreats, women's circle group programs, and private mentorship for over 12 years. She works with women who are shedding old skins, waking up to their true nature, and desiring a life of embodying their wise way of being. She weaves in many different practices to support your journey, including somatic healing and coaching, feminine embodiment, women's spirituality, ritual, earth-based practices, yoga, meditation, and much more. She's extremely passionate about seeing people and helping them through different life transitions that invite them to reunite with their full expression and essential way of being in the world. Welcome to the show, Melanie.
Thank you. I get the chills as you say that back to you. Like, wow, that's me.
Yeah, that's you.
That's great. I love it. It's awesome. Thank you for
Awesome.
such a beautiful introduction. I'm so happy to be here with you, truly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here
Yeah.
with me. I also just want to bring to the audio listeners and also the video listeners who don't know where the heck you are, that you are tuning in from the jungles of Costa Rica right now. So I just want everybody to get a little infusion of what that energy is, especially
Yes,
anybody
I'm
who's listening
sending.
to this in real time in winter and somewhere colder, rainy, or snowy. Just allow the next 25, 30 minutes of this episode to send you some of that pura vida sunny jungle energy. I know I'm already receiving it. My feet feel less cold right now.
Yay. Yes, please, please. Osmose away.
Awesome. So one of the first questions I usually ask on this show when I'm interviewing powerful leaders is sort of, how did you find this work? How did you, go from living a life, I don't want to say like a muggle, but, a normal life, to ending up as an entrepreneur and then a leader who's changing people's lives?
Okay, it's a really good question, and it's a very long answer that we could probably be here for a full day. But
We'll
I
do
will
the
give you the
abbreviated version.
we'll do the Cliff Notes version. So a little bit about me. Well, first of all, thank you again. I'm so happy to be with you. You are such an incredible woman. I know you and I know each other both personally, but also professionally. That I've gotten to work with you in so many different facets. You've helped support my business through being a copy doula, is what I'd like to call you, and just being able to be in your presence and supporting the nurturance of my own expression and emergence. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me here and for all the ways you've supported me over the years. And which then brings me to, how did I get here? How did that all come to be? So when I was younger, so when I was 12, I had my first experience of anorexia. And then I did some healing at that point in my life. And then that took me to 18. I went to UCSB. I was away from home for the first time. I was an only child, and I got hooked into the eating disorder again. And so I was hospitalized for anorexia at that time. I was 18. And I feel like that is a part of my story that I don't share that often anymore because it really feels like another life for me. But that was like, to answer your question of like what sparked all this, that really was the beginning of my journey. I feel like it was the journey of seeing how disconnected I had been from myself and self-loathing and self-worth and self-embodiment. And it was in that moment I had this very pivotal moment where I was rushed to the emergency room. I was put on IVs. And I really do feel like I didn't have the language or the context for it at that time of a spiritual awakening or a reunion with my own essential self. But I feel like that is what I felt. There was this almost near death experience moment where it was like, okay, girl, like I feel like I heard this voice that was like, either you can keep doing this and you will die, like this will end soonish, or you can turn your life around and you can make an impact, and that's what you're here for. And so I feel like that really was the voice I listened to. It wasn't always easy. It hasn't always come easy since then, but that was really the beginning of that path. And so I went and I checked myself into an inpatient unit, and that was the start of things. And then from there, that led me into a journey of finding yoga. That was the initial, there was a couple years after there was quite a few things that happened in between that moment that I just shared with you and then finding yoga. But I felt like my commitment to my own healing, my own transformation, my own sense of self really started in that moment. And that was over 20 years ago now. Now I'm 40. And so what got me into this path was really just my own inner healing of really looking at the fact that the eating disorder was never about the food itself. It was about my own sense of feeling like I needed to prove my existence, feeling like I didn't even exist. Very connected to my own sense of worth and sense of existence in the world. And that energy, that part of the journey really took me into a self-discovery and then a desire to help others in that. And so that led me on a path to finding yoga. And yoga, at first, it was just about exercise for me. I was very much still enmeshed in that world of movement as exercise solely and like how we can get fit and all those sort of things. But it's at least that desire got me to the yoga room. And it's from that moment that things started to really transition and transform, because not only was I getting a quote unquote workout, which now I really see yoga as beyond that, but it's what brought me to the room. Not only was I getting this movement, but something was happening, something was reuniting, something was awakening. I would start to cry. I would start to feel things that I had repressed, that I had suppressed. And then that took me on a journey of just, I have such a fascination and such a deep love for the power of what's possible in our embodied wisdom. And I think the practice of yoga provides that for us. I think the practice of female embodiment, which I can share more later if you want me to expand on that, their practice of somatics, the practice of these earth-based traditions where we can get so in touch with ourselves in and through our bodies. That's what led me on that journey. So it was really my own healing and my own then inspiration for inspiring others to feel like they could feel safe in a body. They could feel safe to be home. And that in that safety of that brings us into a deeper communion and connection with our own knowing, with our own something greater that then transcends the body, right? I could say so much more, but that led me on a very deep path of my own continued exploration and learning. And then my inspiration, like true passion, you probably hear it in my voice because I feel it into every bone of my body and my existence. Just a true passion that I want people to feel like they can be themselves. That's what I want. Like that you can truly unedited be in this body, whatever size, shape, whatever expression you are, just to really be yourself. And so that was the beginning. And then there's a lot more in the in-betweens. There's a lot more of these transformational moments of emergence that I've gone through, but that really was the beginning of it for me.
Yeah. I love that. And what I love about that story too is, which I want everyone out there listening to get, is when you are willing to look at your own stuff and be on your own journey and like address the things that are holding you back or literally killing you. Your willingness to be with you in those moments and to navigate that and to find the other side of it by continuing to move forward and look for the thread. That once you go through that, especially if you're out there listening to this episode or watching this episode and you want to be growing a business as a leader, as a facilitator, as a guide, as a mentor, your willingness to do that work yourself, it becomes this like fire inside of you that makes sharing your work easier. Because what I'm hearing is you went through that journey and it was suddenly like, my life has changed. And there's this now almost insatiable desire to share that change, that possibility with other people. And then it's so much less about, am I good enough to talk about this? And it's more about, I can't help but share this. This needs to be in the world. And it came through me and changed me. And so it's something I am willing to now bring forward. And I just love how much you step into that and you like hold the energy of what's possible for women who maybe haven't considered that before. It's really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love hearing that reflected back. And I just love the way you are able, this is why, like, one of the reasons why I love you so much and why I worked with you is like, I just love the way you are able to articulate that in words.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And it is so important. I feel like I do think study, like I'm an avid learner. I love the insatiability of wanting to learn more and grow and expand and do this training and that. And also, though, I think as leaders, to your point, I think being able to have the embodied experience that I can't help but share, that I feel like God, goddess, universe, whatever, my greater self is like, you got to. And so that's what helps me move through fear, because I still get scared sometimes to share and to be so open about it. Right. Because it's like, I know it here, I feel it, I live it, I breathe it. But yeah, being able to live it, like that's important. Like it's important that it's embodied, so
yeah. So let's dig into that for a minute.
I'll leave it at that.
Feminine embodiment is and how that shows up. How do we know if we're living life not embodied, and what can we do about that?
It's a really, really good question. So I'm closing my eyes because even just in and of itself, I think one of the ways that we live so disembodied is that when we're talking or we're choosing or we're moving through our day, we can be moving so much just from our analytical mind, which is still part of your body. So we do love that part and we do still honor it and we do still accept it, but we've been taught to over prioritize the list, the goals, the thinking, the linear progression of things. And to me, that brings us into more of a disembodied state because we're not communing. To me, embodiment, like how do we know we're not embodied is we're not communing with the vast intelligence that is also communicating with that thinking mind, right? So the embodiment to me is about being able to unite the thinking linear mind, which we still need. We need the ego mind. Like we do need that, it helps us rationalize things. It helps us stay out of danger. It helps us know that, maybe we don't go up and touch a tiger in the middle of its eating its breakfast, or that there's a sense of like, yeah, I'm not going to cross the street when there's a bunch of traffic. Like we do still need that logical, rational mind. But what unfortunately has happened is we, again, have over prioritized that. And we've denied and we've been really not taught to embody the fullness of our experience, which comes in sensation. So our body is a sensational expression and its sensations are communicating to us all the time. So that embodiment of sensation, this embodiment of gut feelings, which can be connected to our sensation as well. The embodiment of our emotions. Sometimes we'll have an emotion that maybe is a reactivity to something, but still, nonetheless, it's important to be in communion with what we're actually feeling, not just what we're thinking, right? And then also that sense of the embodiment of our own energy, our energetics. And so to me, embodiment as a whole is this beautiful, vast language that I think we're, again, not taught, but that can open up the world for us in so many ways in helping us commune with our whole self, not just one part of ourself, our thinking mind, our thinking brain, and really help us live. One of the things that I'm super passionate about right now is this energy of emergence, help us live from emergence, which is a moment to moment sensing, a moment to moment allowance, a moment to moment allowing for something that was previously, the definition of the dictionary is something that was previously concealed that's now allowed to be revealed. And so to me, embodiment, it just opens up this vast experience and expression of our whole self, not, again, just one part of ourself. The feminine piece to me, where that comes in, is helping women reunite even more with the beautiful feminine body, because also our feminine body through our cycles, through our menstrual cycle, through our pelvic floor, through our womb, has also an intelligence. And so often as women, we are taught to deny that intelligence. We're taught to just, I'm sorry to sound crass, but like, we get our period, we're taught to just stick something up there and deny it, or that it's a curse, rather than there is something so alchemical and magical in our blood. Whether or not you're bleeding, whether or not you have a hysterectomy, whether or not you've had issues with that menstruation, we still have an energetic sensation of that. And I think for females, so much of our power lives in our womb, lives in our pelvis, lives in our root. And when we can reunite with that, there's such a power in that. I get the chills thinking about it. There's so much magic in there, because it then allows us to also honor the embodiment that, to your point, when you shared at the beginning, the introduction, my passion for cycles, it allows us to embody that we're not always going to be in the energy of spring and summer. We're also going to have moments in our life where we're going to be in the energies of fall and winter. But we've been taught this idea that we always have to be like the perfect woman and like walking around and being so happy and cheery all the time. But like, what about our grief? What about our sadness? What about the moments where we need to sit in the darkness and in the shadows? Those all, I think, feminine embodiment from that perspective, from the idea of connection to our womb space, really can help us connect to that full range of what it means to be a woman. And I quite frankly think that so often we've been taught to deny it, because I think the patriarchy knows that our power lives there. It's like, there's so much power. Like, that's our power right there. Amongst many other things, but I think that
huge.
I could talk for hours about this, but
I know, but you do. Well, that's why this is the work that you do. Is you care, because it's important, and because you've seen the effects of people actually embodying this work, and that over and over and over again, when someone understands this and actually starts to integrate it into their body and their energy field, that their lives change, that things get easier. I'll share one way that I use this sort of awareness. Is a few years ago, I started paying more attention to the moon, and I started blocking out the year in advance. When there would be a full moon, I knew that my energy usually hits like a climactic zone of like intensity, and that I kind of need to decompress after that. And so I started blocking out my calendar where I can still book me, but nobody else can like come into my scheduler and book me themselves. So I have like a chill week after every full moon. And then I started realizing that my cycle isn't always lined up with the moon. And so I started planning out when that chill week on my schedule was, to be more aligned with my like menstrual cycle, my moon cycle, so that it was my own rhythm that I was honoring, whether or not it was synced up with the moon exactly. It often still is, but sometimes it gets flip-flopped. So there are ways we can actually put this into practice. What happens when we put this into practice is and this is like the biggest gift. If you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, you're starting to move into the entrepreneurial space, you are the master of your schedule. You are the master of your rituals, your practices, your rhythms. You get to create ways of like operating that honor your lulls and your like spurts. And that once you start to find that there is a pattern to that rhythm and you work with it, that you now get to build in the rest. And what happens when you build in the rest is you have more access to that flow zone than you do otherwise. If we try to, I have a podcast episode about this called The Creative Cycle, which speaks about this in the lens of creativity and how there must be a Shiva phase of chaos and utter destruction and nothingness in order to get back to the lightning strike of creativity we call Brahma. And it's the same with our physical energy. And as a leader, especially when you start to pay attention to that, every launch gets easier. Every offering gets made it more in flow, and it just feels good. It feels different. It feels better. And from that place, everything has a greater magnetism to it. So I just wanted to add in that lens for anyone out there who's listening, who's on this path of becoming a leader and stepping into this as a profession, especially if you are in a female body, that starting to pay attention to these rhythms can be like a huge life hack, a huge game changer. And that's one of the things I'm really like so thrilled for the people who are coming to your retreat that's coming up about Emergence, where you're actually taking people into, a really nurturing place, and they can start listening to their bodies and being aware of this emergence Share with us a little bit about this retreat and what's going to happen and who it's really for.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully articulated too, by the way. I feel like, again, just so many ways that we're so in sync with that. Because, yeah, I mean, even for me personally as a leader, this most recent launch, which will be my segue into this retreat, has actually been really different for me than in the past. And I've had my work for 12 years, but like even more as I keep deepening into these practices and aligning with these cycles and these rhythms, it's supporting more of I think in the past I would like do these big launches and then I'd be like, oh, okay, my sensitive soul is like, I don't want to do this anymore. But like, this is about nurturing something for the long run, because I do want to bring this message out there. I do want to support women in this. And so being able to align with my own rhythms and shut the computer at the end of the day, even when I know I could write 10 more emails, and really honor the cycles and the rhythms of my own energy and body has been monumental in continuing to sustain a movement long term, which has been incredible. So I love that you speak of that. Okay, so retreat. I'm super stoked about it. It's called the Emergence Retreat for any of you that are listening, that you're new to this and you're new to us. And for those of you, a little blip it, just so you know, my background is that I led women's retreats for 9 years. And a couple of years ago, went through a really, really, really big, this is contextual to what we'll be up to at the retreat. I went through a really big transition. I ended a 9-year relationship with a man that I still have such deep love and care for. We don't speak, currently, but I have such a deep appreciation for him on my journey. And I had done so many years of retreats and personal growth and all of it. And I don't think anything could have prepared me fully, although I had a lot of preparation from my practices and my foundation and all the things I've already spoken about, to really move through this impasse. And so for me, I had to burn a lot of things down and let things go and let things shed and let things die. And one started with that relationship, but then it was a series of things. And so I paused my women's retreats for a couple of years, and I really let the energy, I love supporting women. I have such a deep, I know in my life's blood, like I am meant to guide women in groups and circles and retreats, but I had to let that old form die because I was shedding, because I was dying in a way. There was a death and rebirth cycle that was happening in me. And it was intense. I'm not going to lie about that. It was so intense. I mean, the grief was so intense. The grief was so immense. There were moments where I was like, I don't know which way is up, and yet I still brought myself through that journey, which brought me to Costa Rica. And so now I live in Costa Rica from California. I moved from the States a year ago. And in the true art and energy of what I'm going to be sharing with everybody at this retreat has been my journey really over the past couple decades, but especially these past 2 years. I knew another retreat was going to come, but I had to allow it to emerge. And it had to allow it to emerge in its natural progression, into allowing, again, the shedding of what needed to be shed for me and what needed to then emerge as a deepened expression. And so as things started to move and I allowed for the time and the space for my own experience, this seedling of this idea came about. And it was so beautiful, because I knew the retreat came, and then I didn't know what the title of the retreat was, but I knew the retreat was there. And then in the true art form of letting something be revealed over time, this energy of emergence, then all of a sudden it was like, wait, it's the Emergence Retreat. It's like basically the blueprint of what my whole life has been for especially these last couple of years. And so what I'm excited about for this retreat, the idea, the seedling, the inspiration, is to guide women who are currently in a life transition where there is something that is shedding, something that, whether it could be a literal relationship, it could be a way you've been doing work, it could be a way you have existed in terms of your orientation to the world. A lot of women that come to me have oriented very much out there, their sense of self out there, and doing things for others, caretaking others, being a good girl, being a pleaser, being this. So it could be a shedding of an identity or a way of orienting yourself in the world. And then also is for the woman who in that shedding is also feeling the sense of something is ready to emerge, the something being more of her vitality, more of her aliveness, a creative inkling that wants to be nurtured and fed. A lot of women I work with are also entrepreneurs, women in these healing spaces where there's an inkling of something and they don't want to do it in that way that we see so much in the coaching industry, where there's this formula or these hacks or they want to be their authentic self in that expression, but they fear that if they don't follow the formula or they don't follow the thing, that they won't be able to do it. But I feel like you can't, like your authenticity is what inspires the world, right? So it could be for a woman who has a creative inkling could be more of an expression. For me personally, when I came to Costa Rica, I like just who I am is naturally very sensual. Sensuality to me is different than sexuality. There can be a crossover, but sensual, like just I love to move. I love to like be in the rhythm of things. Yet that was something that I had tamed down because I thought, oh, people are going to think I'm weird or there's too muchness to it. But one of the things that's emerged for me being here in this beautiful, magical jungle that mirrors to me the wildness and the freeness and the lushness that we all are has helped me bring that online again. Like my senses, my sensory, my movement, my aliveness. Like you can't get away from it. I look out the window and the trees are just so alive. The monkeys howl in the morning. And it's like these expressions that I think we put into dormancy because we've been told it's not okay or too much, or we're afraid of it. We're afraid of our power. You know, there's that too. We're afraid of how powerful we are. So the retreat is really for that woman who's shedding and also wanting to bring more of herself in, that emergence of knowing there's something there that wants to be felt, seen, experienced, and expressed, and done so in a way where it's authentically hers. So while there will be, what we'll be up to is we'll be doing different somatic practices, journaling, inquiry. We'll be in nature quite a bit. We'll be in nature doing some like nice, lovely walks. We'll be able to do some rituals with the earth and the ground and the moon. We'll be doing some authentic movement practice, which I adore and love. We'll be having guest facilitators come in and share their beauty and their love. And yet, through all of those practices, the intention is that they are invitations, they are doorways into the guiding a woman home to her own knowing with that. So it's not another thing to impose onto people, do these things and you'll be X. It's let's go through these expressions that I have found to be incredibly valuable when we're moving into a life of emergence and allowing for the unknown to emerge through us. Let's have these practices support what is ready to pop, what is ready to shed, what is ready to be fully actualized. And so that's the energy of the retreat. Both the support, a lot of my clients call me a spiritual doula, which I love owning that name. It's like I'm there to help doula them through that birthing process, through that shedding process. But also through that experience, my intention is that at a lot of retreats, you know, you have these lovely experiences and they're high state experiences, and it's just as real as the life that they have back at home. But people have a hard time integrating that back into then the community that they have back at home that potentially isn't as resonant to that experience, or they don't have those practices set up at home, or their spouse or their partner isn't on board with that. My intention is that through also the retreat, not only is this emergence happening and supporting that woman in that process, but also that she has now a way of emergence as a way of life. There's a new blueprint that's being reinforced that she can then take back with her, right? That she can then bring with her into her life. And so it's not just a retreat, but emergence as a way of life. And to me, emergence is that allowance. It's that how do we live in the unknown? How do we allow for the trust of what is to come to come? How do we not force and grip and try to control life so deeply? And we allow for what comes. And I can only share from my experience and then working with so many women in this, the power of emergence rather than the imposition of a way of life. So I could say more.
Yeah, of course.
That is that.
That's why this is what you do. But yeah, I want to speak to that as well, because there is so much telling us how to be, how to think, how to behave, how to make choices, how to move forward, how to get where we're going. Yep. And there's so little, there's more and more lately, but there's so little inviting us to actually listen to what our body knows, to actually listen to what our spirit is trying to communicate through signs, through messages, through physical sensations, that this is some of the most potent work a person could choose to dig into. And I think there is absolutely nothing like immersing yourself in a different environment, in a very nurturing, caring, very kind of womb-like space to rebirth yourself, to find that new expression that has been begging to be born through you. So I just want to encourage anybody who's leaning in, who's on the edge of their seat, the opportunity that's being laid out for you is a leap. It's a leap of faith that Melanie could help you. It's a leap of courage that this could be a turning point for you. And I know for me, every leap, whether it looked how I thought it would look on the other side or not, has led to more of me in my life. and greater possibilities in my reality. So I have goosebumps just saying that. If it's time to leap, fucking do it.
I have full chills as you're talking too.
Yeah, just do it. It's tapping you on the shoulder. If it's you're feeling your body start to sort of lean towards whatever speaker the sound is coming out of, like honor that knowing, honor that part of your body that's begging for something like this. And whatever happens, you're going to gain something from it. There's no doubt about that. That's what happens when we put ourselves in spaces where we're expanding and invited to expand, and space is held for us to choose that. So the link to check it out is Melanie Elkin. That's MELANIE Elkin, ELKIN.com/retreat. And we will put that link in the show notes for you. Or you can Google Melanie Elkin. There's not a lot of Melanie Elkins out there, I don't think.
I don't think so. But I did find out there are some, which I was very shocked about because I feel like my name is not that common, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but even if you just look up Melanie Emergence Retreat, you'll probably find it. But we will put the link in the show notes of this episode. And here's one other thing I just want to say. We're out of time. We've gone a couple of minutes over maybe, but you are like the maestro of your reality. It's up to you to choose a path, to choose a new path, to choose a different mindset, to choose to be with your body at last. Like nobody can pick that for you. Nobody's going to save you and change all the pieces of your life on your behalf. Like you are the only one who gets to show up for you in that way that will create a lasting transformation. So choose it, be it, become it. I'm sure many of those out there listening, you probably already have amazing practices in your life, and it's probably no accident that you came to this episode. And I'll add one more thing. If you have a friend who should hear this show, you probably have a best friend who maybe is going through a breakup, or who's going through, should I stay or should I go? Or who's going through, something is like aching or moving, or it's scary how much is shifting. Just send this over, see if it helps. Send this episode to them and let them know, there's some juice in here that might inspire you. And I'm just thinking about you and wanted you to hear this. Pass it along because that is a huge gift to other people. I just got so inspired by a podcast I listened to yesterday and already sent it to 3 more people. And I'm like, This is juicy. Check it out. Like, it's really fun to receive that too. Not everybody's going to bother to listen, but some people will. Yes. And then you have this beautiful common thing to discuss and connect on. So that being said, I always ask this at the end of the episodes. You've shared so much beauty and magic already. Are there any last words of wisdom you want to leave people with?
I feel like we said there's so much more we could both say. I feel like we said some pretty good gems for now. And I think just to echo what you just said at the end there is that if there is something in you that is asking to be fed, seen, leaped for, do it. And I don't mean it from that, like, just do it energy, but like give yourself that gift, because there is so much beauty. And yes, there's melting down too, but there is so much beauty that can come from that yes to yourself, that choice for yourself, that allowance to follow what is emerging, truly. And I hope that Molly and I can both be living, breathing expressions of that as embodiments to say, yeah, it's possible. I mean, that one little inkling, I had this idea to go to Costa Rica on a solo trip back right at the beginning of my breakup. And I heard that voice and I followed it. And it brought me to this moment, sitting here, having a podcast with you today, living here now. Never thought I was going to live here. Just thought I was going on an 11-day solo trip. So the beauty and the possibility and the miraculousness that can happen when we choose to listen is powerful.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Melanie, for being on the show.
Oh my God, thank you. This was so lovely with you.
Yeah.
I feel so
thank you
filled.
also,
I feel filled up.
Yeah. Thank you also for walking this path and bringing it forth for other women to receive it.
Thank you so much. Chills, chills,
Awesome.
chills.
Cool. Again, we'll put it in the show notes, melanie-elkin.com/retreat. Check it out. It's going to be awesome. And having also lived in Costa Rica for a short time in my life, I can say just being in that place has a very deep resonance that will change your life. Yeah, it's intense. And
big time.
Yeah, I'm super grateful that you've listened to this show. We'll have another episode out for you very soon. As always, keep asking big questions and taking bold action, because you are here for a reason. We'll see you next time.